Hey, what is up guys, and welcome to another Honkai Star Rail video. Alright, so it's time for another account overview. This time I'm quite pleased with the results. And honestly, the only reason I believe I did so well in the last season of Memory of Chaos is because of the turbulence that gave defense shred, paired along with the fact that I finally built up my Silver Wolf to a certain degree. Also, you guys probably might have noticed already that my voice might sound a little bit different than usual. That's because I've been feeling a little bit sick the last couple of days, so I'm going to keep this account review short and simple in order to not strain my voice too much. Okay, let's begin. Alright, and as usual, here's a screenshot of my progression in the last season of Memory of Chaos. As you can see, I finished it with only 3 hours left. Struggled a lot less compared to the previous season of Memory of Chaos. Like I said, this is mostly due to the memory turbulence that allowed for me to deal more damage when paired along with a Nihility character like Silver Wolf. And as you can see, I made it all the way to floor 10 finally, and I was even able to survive and clear it with 1 star. And with that, we managed to grab a total of 27 out of the 30 stars, which in my opinion is pretty damn good for a free-to-play player. Based on my previous poor performance, I was expecting around anywhere from 21 to 24 stars. But what really surprised me was the fact that I was able to 3-star stage 8 with relative ease compared to the previous attempts I've made. I think it only took me like 2 or 3 tries to actually 3-star stage 8. Stage 9 and stage 10 were a different story, however. They both took multiple attempts before I finally got the amount of stars I wanted, especially floor 9 for some reason. I knew I had enough damage to get 2 stars, but it was actually surviving that was the issue. My second team, for some reason, one of my carries would always get focused and die at the last moment. So this actually forced me to do quite a few attempts. I think I did a total of 10 plus attempts or something before I finally got 2 stars on it. Oh, before I forget, I actually swapped up my teams for the first 8 stages and the last 2 stages of Memory of Chaos. For the first 8 stages, I ran Ting Young as a buffer on one of my teams and benched March 7th since I really needed the damage to get 3 stars rather than survivability. Surviving wasn't really a huge issue. When we got to floor 9 and floor 10, however, that was a different story. I actually needed March 7th shielding and taunting capabilities. Or not really taunting capabilities, her increased aggro, you guys know what I mean with her shield and everything. If I didn't run March 7th on floor 9 and floor 10, there was absolutely no way my team was going to survive. So I decided to bench Ting Young instead for floor 9 and 10, which in my opinion, she is probably the weakest character out of my other characters. And the fact that the memory turbulence actually benefits Silver Wolf, or is in favor of Silver Wolf, I figured that Ting Young would be the one to hit the bench. Because of this, a lot of my relics have been swapped around, so when I would go over my relics, I'll let you guys know which relics belong to which character. Okay, and here's a second screenshot of stage 10. These were the 2 teams that I used on the stage in order to just clear it with 1 star, just surviving basically. I knew I didn't have enough damage to even get 2 stars, so I just didn't bother with it. For the first team, I have Zile, Silver Wolf, Bailu, and the Fire Trailblazer. The second team, we ran Serval, Dan Hung, Natasha, and March 7th, basically my OG free-to-play team. The first half wasn't too big of an issue, especially since I had Bailu and Fire Trailblazer. If I removed Bailu and replaced her with Natasha, which I did for a couple of attempts, my team would actually not be able to survive due to my team not having the invigoration buff from Bailu's ultimate and technique. I also have the major trace unlocked, I'll show you guys later, where my characters actually take 10% reduced damage whenever the invigoration buff is up. So yeah, Bailu was actually quite a important character to have on the first stage. And basically how my team survived the first half was during critical situations, I would have the Fire MC use his taunt to reduce everyone's damage as well as take aggro from the majority of the enemies. And if I had Bailu's ultimate, I would top everyone up and provide them with the invigoration buff, further reducing the damage taken from AoE. Because on the first stage, that mechanical robot thing summons a lot of the annoying fish that they do AoE damage and they actually reduce everyone's defense, so it's really annoying to have to deal with that. The second half was also quite difficult, especially once you got to Kafka. Most people will complain about her mind control mechanic, but since I had both Natasha and March 7th, that wasn't really the issue here. The issue was the fact that she just did a lot of damage. Whenever she did her move, I forgot what it's called, but she basically just throws like a grenade on the ground and it does massive AoE damage. That could literally 2-shot both my carries if my carries were within like probably 60% HP. So I made sure I had to keep a March 7th shield on both of them at all times. But yeah, the majority of the time when I failed stage 10 was due to the second team just not being able to survive Kafka's burst damage. That was the main issue for floor 10. But eventually we did finally pull through. I had to play it super safe and save all my skill points for March 7th shield and Natasha heal and giving up some DPS. I think I finished this stage with only 2 to 3 turns left, but good enough for me. Alright, now let's quickly go over my characters and their gear. I can already feel my voice dying, so let's make this quick. Starting off with Bailu. Not much has changed with Bailu. I think some of her relics got improved. Her stats are here. Lycone is the same. Traces, I upgraded her ultimate to level 9. That's pretty much it. Oh, no, and I unlocked this major trace. Characters with Invigoration receive 10% less damage. So that definitely played a very huge role in my survival. Relics, I believe... She used to have a plus 12 outgoing healing boost, but I think I got a pretty decent musketeer piece that I got to plus 12. Oh no, she had a plus 12 before. This is the new one that I got, and I gave the plus 12 piece to Natasha. I'll go over Natasha later, but other than that, the majority of her gear is pretty much the same. No Eidolons, of course. Now we move on to Natasha. Those are her stats. This is her light cone, same light cone. Traces, I believe I got her ultimate to level 9 as well. Other than that, I don't think I did anything else in terms of traces. Relics, this is what I did. I broke apart her 4-piece pacifier of Wandering Cloud set because I figured the extra skill point was just whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal. So instead, she had a purple or 4-star outgoing healing boost piece before. I just replaced it with the musketeer piece that I had on Bailu for more outgoing healing boost. And I think that's pretty much the only change I made on Natasha. Yeah, not really much of a difference from last time. Eidolon, she's at Eidolon 2. Now we move on to Serval. I believe I moved some of my relics around, so she does have quite a bit more improved crit rate compared to last time. As you can see, 60%. I believe she was at exactly 50% last time, so a little bit of an improvement there. Lycone is the same. Her traces, I got her ultimate to level 9. And I think I got her talent and skill from level 7 to level 8. So, a little bit of an upgrade to her traces. For her relics, I believe I made 2 upgrades. Before, she had a different pair of gloves, and they were only at plus 12. I think I upgraded a new piece with these substats here. Before, it was only speed and crit rate, I believe, were the 2 good substats. I decided to use this one instead. I just gave up on the extra speed that the previous one gave. Instead, it gives improved crit rate, crit damage, and break effect. So overall, I believe the substats are pretty good. Unfortunately, on the last roll, it did go into defense, so it is what it is, though. And then for the last, I guess, upgrade, if you want to call it that, I did have to break it. I used to have a 2-piece musketeer set. I decided to break that set apart. And instead, I gave her Dan Hung's crit rate piece that he had before. It's a crit rate main stat with pretty good substats, a lot of attack and crit damage, and some decent break effect. I figured that this off piece would be better than the really crappy crit rate piece she had. It was a musketeer set, but the substats were really bad, and it was only at plus 9. So that is the changes I have to my Serval. No Eidolons, of course. Alright, and finally we get to Silverwolf, which is the character that I spent the entire 2 weeks basically building up. These are her stats. Let me show you guys how much effect hit rate she has. Not quite enough, not where I want it to be, but it is good enough for now. She's using the free event Lycone that we got before the tutorial mission starts. Super in position at level 5 and fully maxed out. Her traces I put quite a bit of investment into. I'm probably going to have to put even more since I want the guaranteed debuffs on the opponent. And you have to get her traces to a very high level. Ultimate's at level 9. Skill is at 8, and of course her talent is at level 8 as well. I'm probably eventually going to have to max out all of these regardless. And eventually unlock her 3rd major trace, which has the effect hit rate node locked behind it. So yeah, I'll probably have to work on that during this week when there's an event going on for double drops on the trace material. Her relics, I did get quite a few good pieces in terms of relics for Silverwolf. Some of these actually don't belong to her, some of them belong to my Ting Young. Like I said, when I dropped Ting Young for the last 2 stages of Memory of Chaos, I did take some of her gear and put it on my other characters, so let's quickly go over them. I believe this piece was on my Ting Young for the extra durability, but since I wasn't using her, I put it on my Silverwolf. These are actually Silverwolf's gloves, and they're actually pretty much perfect for her. It's got speed, crit rate, and effect hit rate. 3 of the most important stats in my opinion for a good Silverwolf build. Chest piece, I believe this is what I had on my Serval before. It's just a really bad crit rate musketeer piece. But hey, it does have speed and a little bit of attack, and it completes the set for my Silverwolf. These boots are absolutely insane. I finally got 2 pairs actually, not just 1, 2 pairs of 5-star speed boots for the Musketeer set. And this one rolled pretty well. It rolled twice into attack, once into crit rate, and once into effect hit rate. And I believe the 4th stat that it rolled was effect hit rate. It only started with 3 substats. But it didn't land a single time in the defense, so I'm really happy about that. This is pretty much going to be a permanent piece on my Silverwolf. This is a new quantum damage boost planar sphere that I got recently. These substats aren't great, but I decided I needed to build up a piece, at least for Silverwolf temporarily. So I just got to +9. It's probably going to get replaced in the near future. And this piece is actually my Ting Young's energy regeneration rope that I got a couple of weeks ago. Or no, not a couple of weeks. Maybe about one or two weeks ago. It's okay. It's by no means perfect. And it actually would fit Silverwolf really well, because it does have a lot of speed, effect hit rate, and a decent amount of attack. But the thing is, Silverwolf doesn't actually need energy regeneration rate if you're running the event Lycone, because the event Lycone already gives you a decent amount of energy regeneration. So running this energy regeneration rope, in my opinion, is probably going to overcap her energy regardless. You're probably better off running a attack percent link rope, or even break effect if you're planning to build break effect Silverwolf. Eidolons, of course, she doesn't have any Eidolons. Alright, next let's talk about my Zile. She did get quite a change. As you might have noticed, her crit rate dropped by quite a bit, but her crit damage did go up as well. And we'll talk more about that once I get into her relics. For her light cone, it's the same, cruising in the Stellar Sea at Super Imposition level 5. Her traces are pretty much the same. I believe the only change I made was I got her talent to level 8, and I pretty much left everything else unchecked because it just cost too much. Okay, so for her relics, she got quite a bit of an improvement. I'll show you guys what she got improved on, starting off with probably the Planar Sphere. I actually got a really good, well, I wouldn't say really good, it's pretty good quantum damage boost Planar Sphere for the crit rate set. And it actually has speed, crit rate, and flat attack and defense are pretty bad, but the rolls were okay. It rolled, I believe, once in a speed, 2 or 3 times in a crit rate, and then 1 time in a flat attack, completely dodging out on the defense. And I was actually able to complete the set with a link rope I already had, which is this piece right here, which also has a decent amount of crit rate and speed. The other 2 stats are pretty bad, defense and effect hit rate. But with the completed set, she gets an additional 8% crit rate, which really helps out, and her ultimate does 15% more damage. So the thing is, with this set and the link rope and planar sphere, had I run the crit rate headpiece or chest piece that I had before, I would have overcapped on crit. I would have had like 91% crit rate, and with the cruising in the Stellar Sea light cone, if I got the buff for the additional crit rate, she would be overcapped over 100. So I didn't really want that. So instead, I opt for a crit damage headpiece here. I tried to look for a good crit damage headpiece, but I didn't really have one, so I just had to settle for this one here, which is pretty terrible. It's an offset piece with some questionable substats. It does have a little bit of crit rate there, but definitely not enough. So yeah, I did some slight calculations, and it actually turned out that I would be doing slightly more damage, although not as consistent, with this really bad crit damage piece when compared to a plus 15 crit rate piece. And by running a crit damage chest piece on my Zile, I could pass down that crit rate piece to my Dan Heng, which would give him more consistent damage as well. So overall, I believe it was a net positive by giving my Zile a inferior piece compared to what she had before. Eidolons, of course, she's at Eidolon 0. Alright, now we move on to my second main DPS, which is Dan Heng. Here are his stats. He has slightly more crit rate than before. I believe he was only at like 54 or 55% crit rate. Now he's at 58, which is not much better, but it's better than nothing, I guess. His light cone is the same. Traces, I believe I got his skill to level 11, and I don't know if I had his ultimate maxed out before. I might have, but yeah, I got his skill to level 9 plus 2 thanks to the Eidolons. Did I touch his talent? I don't remember. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. I don't remember. I didn't really do much upgrading to my Dan Heng's traces regardless. For his relics, what I did was I changed up his relic set. I believe he only had a 2-piece musketeer set before. Now I gave him a 4-piece musketeer set, mainly for the speed boost, so he's able to hit that 120 speed threshold for this other set that I have for his Planar Sphere and Link Rope, which is the Fleet of the Ageless set. Not the best set to put on Dan Heng, but hey, it is overall one of the best 2-piece sets you can put on any character, because the attack buff does stack if you have multiple pieces of this set on multiple characters. And like I said before, this crit rate piece is the crit rate piece I had on Zile. I decided to put it on my Dan Hung because I believe he'd benefit more from it, and he can actually use the effect hit rate for his slow on his skill. I think he has a different planar sphere as well. I don't think it's an upgrade, however. I only upgraded this planar sphere just for the specific set to go along with his link rope, which the link rope is actually pretty good, in my opinion. Fortunately, it did roll into effect resist, I think, at plus 15, so like I said, it is what it is. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it for Dan Hung. Just the chest piece as the major upgrade. For his Eidolons, he's still at Eidolon 3, no change here. Alright, next is the Fire Trailblazer. Pretty much everything's the same for this guy, I didn't really do much with him. Lycon's the same, Traces are the same, I didn't touch them. Relics, I might have switched his relics around with March 7th, maybe? No, I think they're still the same. No, they're pretty much still the same. Eidolon, still at Eidolon 5. We'll get his Eidolon 6, probably in patch 1.2 once we get the entire second part of the main story quest. Here's my Ting Young. Oh, my poor Ting Young that got benched because she was too weak to go on the last 2 floors of Memory of Chaos. I believe she's the same as well. I didn't really do much upgrading for my Ting Young. Lycone is still the same. Traces definitely still the same. Relics, these are definitely not her relics. These are a mix between my March 7th relics and probably my Silver Wolf relics. I believe so, yeah. I think I swapped the relics around with March 7th and Silver Wolf, and these are just the leftover pieces that I had to slap onto Ting Young temporarily. So, rip Ting Young. No Eidolons for Ting Young, unfortunately. And finally, we get to March 7th, who is actually the saving grace for this season of Memory of Chaos, in my opinion at least. Had it not been for her, I definitely would not be able to even survive the last 2 stages. These are her stats. She's actually not even fully upgraded. I still have to ascend her to 6-star. I'm probably going to do that next week. This week, there's currently a Calyx event going on, so I'm definitely not going to be farming Ascension material, that's for sure. For her Lycone, it's still the same, Moment of Victory. It's not fully upgraded yet, so she still has room to grow there. Traces, I actually upgraded her shield 2 levels. It was at level 64. I got it to level 8 because it got to the point where the enemies were actually piercing through her shield within 1 to 2 turns, especially that one samurai looking Mara soldier. He has like 1 piercing attack. That thing would literally take out about 60 to 70% of March 7th shield. So I was like, okay, it's about time I finally upgraded the skill. And this is pretty much the only skill you have to upgrade for her Traces, in my opinion. Everything else, it's just a damage boost, which she doesn't deal any damage, so there's no point in upgrading the rest of her Traces, even though I already did put some investment. But for those of you guys who are building March 7th, I would recommend just only upgrading her skill, her shield basically, and of course getting the skill that removes the debuff on an ally. Her relics are also pretty much the same. The only difference is that she borrowed some of my relics from Ting Young. They aren't actually her relics. For example, the boots. These are my Ting Young boots, the speed boots that I have on my Ting Young. The second pair of 5-star Musketeer speed boots that I managed to get last week, which I'm pretty happy about. The rolls were pretty decent. I actually didn't want it to roll in the crit rate, but it rolled in the crit rate twice, so it is what it is. I'm not going to complain because it's 5-star speed boots for a Musketeer set that pretty much half of my characters want, so there's actually no complaints here. It did roll in the defense a couple of times, so that did help out March and Ting Young. I would rather have the defensive stats for both of those characters just so they can survive or help my team stay alive. So yeah, she's borrowing boots from Ting Young. Let me see here. I believe this is hers, this is hers, this is hers. These pair of gloves are on my Ting Young as well. Yeah, so she's borrowing the gloves from my Ting Young, and I decided to put this on March 7th just because it has a decent amount of defense, so it scales her shield pretty well as well. Her link rope, I believe this belonged to my Fire Trailblazer. I decided to swap the 2 link ropes. This is the one I have usually on March 7th for the extra effect hit rate, because I actually ran into an issue. Since she's not technically fully upgraded, she's still ascended to 5-star, and her Lycone's only 5-star as well. I actually ran into a situation where March 7th died a couple of times because she just wasn't tanky enough. So I figured that Fire Trailblazer himself, when he uses his taunt, he takes pretty much 50%, or it's like 40-something% reduced damage whenever he taunts. So in general, the Fire Trailblazer, in my opinion, is just the tankier character, so he doesn't really need as much defensive stats when compared to someone like March 7th, which I'm actually not even running a full defense set, I believe, for her headpiece. I'm running effect hit rate. or her chest piece, yeah, affect hit rate. So she definitely needs the extra defense, and this also helps with the shield that she provides to my allies. So I decided to swap the 2 link ropes. Other than that, I think the majority of her relics are roughly the same. I did have to break apart the 4-piece Knight of the Purity Palace set, but it is whatever. I wanted the extra speed and durability for March 7th, so I think it was well worth the change in her relics to break that set apart. Eidolons, of course, the famous Eidolon 6 March 7th that you guys know well and true from my Jingyuan summons. It's also probably one of the main reasons why my March 7th did so much work. Okay guys, well that's going to be it for this Honkai Star Rail video. I may or may not be taking a small break for the next week in order just to recover a bit until I feel a little bit better. After all, I don't want the strain on my voice to actually affect the quality of my videos, so hopefully you guys understand that. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, or join if you wish to support my channel even further. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next Honkai Star Rail video. Peace.